Hey, what's up, guys? So, there have been talks about what's happening economic situation in Kenya. Most people have been complaining. Most people are thinking there could be something coming up. I know some of these things are usually just fears that go around and rumors, and they start like this, and then something big happens. So, people have been saying, hey, the economy is really bad. Businesses are struggling. Things are not good. There's no circulation of money in the economy in Kenya. And I'm thinking, okay, what should we do in this case? Anyway, guys, welcome to Ken's Money Matters. Here we talk about the money mindset, how to make that money, how to enjoy that money, how to manage that money, how to invest that money, and how to achieve yourself a lifetime of income, basically financial freedom. So welcome. It's been a while. I've been doing lots of videos on money market funds. If you haven't watched my videos on money market funds, please go and watch them. There's a lot of series. It's a good series that would actually really expand your view on money market funds. The videos basically gives you everything you need to know about money market funds, from the basic stuff to the most complicated stuff and to the stuff that we don't usually talk about. So if these are the kind of videos you're looking for, make sure you subscribe, share these videos, and hit that like button, guys, so we can get these videos to as many people as possible. Anyways, as you are subscribing, as you are hitting that liking button, let me tell you what's happening in Kenya. The economic situation has been worsening in quotes, and I'm not going to say just worsening without really qualifying what that means, but the economic situation has been worsening and people are really worried. So I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day who does a lot of business, and it was like, things have really gotten bad. For example, people who do Airbnb, for instance, they've had like really high occupancy. If you look at the same period last year, the same period 2 years before, the same period 3-4 years before, things are not exactly as they should be. So everyone is thinking, is there something happening in the economy that we don't know? So there has been the issue of controlling currency as well. The banks don't want to give you cash, and people are thinking something could be happening in the economy that we don't know about. So again, for us, as the people who deal with financial literacy and deal with investment and economy and stuff like that, it's just good that we give you a good explanation of what could be happening in the economy so you can make your decision. But I'm going to give you a very factual explanation of what's happening, and then you gotta look for yourself. Look at the economy that you are in Kenya, and you'll tell me in the comment section if you think that there is a problem or not, because I'm not on the ground all the time, and therefore I'm not in a position to pinpoint everything that's happening besides the research and speaking to people. When we say economy is getting worse, or when we feel people are worried that the economy is getting worse, what does it mean? It could just be fears. People are always fearful about the economy, especially if your life depends on it, right? We are fearful about the political situation in a country. We are fearful about how things are going in terms of how we feel the economy is functioning for us. But again, it could just be like a period of like difficulty. So we do have recessions. Recessions are, periods where there's a bit of less economic growth, less economic activity. Things are slowing down. That's normal. And all economies go through a season or a wave of recession. So that's normal. But then we have depression. That's when we have like negative growth. We have like everything has stagnated, or they're negative, or things are really, really bad. But what are some of the signs that we are actually having a serious economic collapse? What are the signs that you are staring right at economic collapse? And economic collapse could lead to so many things. You know what economic collapse could be? It's like turmoil. It's an economic turmoil. It's a situation whereby there is nothing that's happening that's good economically speaking. The country is in a suffering mode. It's in a what we call a survival mode. So what are some of the signs that we need to look out for as Kenyans to realize, okay, maybe we are in a bad economic situation? Because sometimes the political class will never tell you if you're in a bad economic situation or not. So until it is too late, you will be like, okay, everything is fine, And they will tell you everything is fine, obviously, because they are benefiting somehow. We're still paying taxes. There's still money in the economy. There's still some production, obviously. And so they still get their money. But they will never come and tell you because, again, for the political ramifications, they will never tell you what is actually happening in the economy. I have no interest, and therefore I'll tell you the truth. Number one sign that an economy is facing serious collapse is a worsening unemployment rate. Now, obviously, employment is a good thing, and you don't want your employment rate to be too high, right? You actually want it to be at almost zero because you want people to be producing in an economy. An economy that's active has a very high employment rate. An economy that's active has to ensure that people are working and producing and paying back to the system, and that's how the system runs. The system runs from people's production. So when there's high unemployment rate, what does it mean? It means that the businesses that employ people do not have the capacity to pay them, do not have the production levels that would employ people. They cannot sustain wages, and therefore what do? They fire people. Or they're not just in a position to even hire people. And therefore, even though a population is increasing, the number of workforce is, the size of the workforce is expanding, But what happens? The companies and the businesses cannot actually pull these people into the workforce. That is high unemployment rate, and that always portends doom. Now, let's look at Kenya in this case. So Kenya, for instance, has had a very stable unemployment rate of around 3% for a very long time up to 2017. From 2017, the unemployment rate in Kenya shot from around 4.5% to around 5.68%. That was a big shoot from 2017. If you look at the graph, which I will put on the screen, you can see a very big, shot up. You can see a very clear shot up of unemployment rate. And at the moment, we are looking at 6.68% for 2024. That's the projection right now. So from 5.68 last year to around 6.68% this year. So there is definitely high unemployment rate, but still, from an economic perspective, that is not a big sign enough to show you that things are bad. Even though unemployment is quite high among the youth, which is between the ages of, I think, 17 up to 34. So within that group, there should be high employment, but there is none. So in Kenya, we have like one of the highest unemployment rates among the youth. But these are general unemployment rates. So at 6.68% in 2024, that's high. But is it something that warrants you to worry? I don't think so. I've looked at other countries that had economic turmoil that went completely collapsed. The unemployment rate can go way higher. The Great Depression in the US, the unemployment rate was at 25%. So I don't think it's something we need to worry about at the moment. The second sign is the rising inflation. Rising inflation in a country. What's inflation? Is consumer price index measured by the amount of goods that someone can buy using an amount of money at a specific time compared to a different time. So you just checking, I had 100 Kenyan shillings today, I can buy this amount of goods. I have it next year, I can also buy this amount. Can I buy the same amount of goods, or it's way less, right? So inflation is basically increasing prices. Now, inflation can be a good thing somehow, but uncontrolled inflation, which can get to hyperinflation, is definitely a bad thing. Because what happens is, when there's very high inflation, people don't want to spend money because they're spending a lot of money on nothing, basically. So what happens? It means they get to a point where they cannot actually afford stuff. So inflation should be controlled, and that's the work of the Central Bank of Kenya. They have to control inflation. Now, we haven't gotten to a really bad level. Let's look at the inflation rate in Kenya right now and then see if it's something that we have to worry about. So based on the Central Bank of Kenya, our inflation rate in 2023 was ranging at an average of around 8%. And that is, of course, based on CBK statistics. Of course, this could be way higher. Based on our own research last year, I think inflation rate was at like 9.6%. Of course, the government is going to try to manage, expectations and make sure that they release that actually makes sense to them and to people. But even if we go by the statistics of the government, which is in CBK, inflation rate in 2023 was around 8% average. That's inflation rate. Now, in 2024, we are looking at an average of like around 5%. So inflation has actually been controlled well enough in Kenya. It's not a runaway inflation. It's not crazy. It's not hyperinflation. It's just something that is quite normal. And inflation rates at this level is okay. At 5%, it's okay. But if it gets way higher or if it jumps high, then that's a sign for worry. So the inflation rate is not something to worry about for now in Kenya. I know this is not exact, even if it was, let's say, 9%. Let's forget about the 5% the government is telling us. Let's talk about, actually, it's like 6% average. But let's say it's at like 9%. It's still not something that you have to worry about. So our inflation rate is quite stable as well. That shows that the economy is just in a place whereby it's okay. There's nothing crazy about it. Then the other sign is usually declining property sales. Now, property is a big part of an economy. Real estate is a big part of an economy. Our property sales in Kenya have been increasing crazily. Now, the other risk is this. If it increases so much, it becomes a bubble, it means the prices are not reflecting the intrinsic value of the real estate market in Kenya. And then it can just rise because people are trying to balloon it, and maybe people are throwing money into the real estate industry. It gets to a point where it is unsustainable and it bursts. That bubble can burst. Now, it means rising prices in real estate can be a good thing, and it can also be a bad thing. It's something that we have to look into with more details and more clarity. So you could be saying it's a good thing that we're having lots of real estate, we're having a lot of development in the real estate sector, but is it a good thing? Is it something that's actually spurring economic growth, or people are just dumping money in real estate, therefore increasing those prices, right, and making it almost unsustainable for most people? But if we were just looking at it from the face of it and not worrying about the other issues like, people dumping money, that is not being produced in the economy properly, then we're looking at a normal real estate growth. If I look at the statistics now, the real estate market in Kenya is expected to reach a value of around 733 billion in 2024. Transaction, $733 billion transacted in 2024 in real estate. Now that's very high and that's a new record. I'll look for the graph and show it here. The residential properties are dominating the market with a projected market volume of 657 billion in 2024. That's a level we haven't reached in terms of market volume for residential real estate. So it means there hasn't been a decline in home sales. People are buying real estate, people are buying homes, and that's a good thing. So if there was a declining need for houses, then we could start thinking maybe there's an issue with the economy. But looking at the property sales in Kenya, I think we're still in a very stable place. We're still growing. There has been a very good real estate sector growth in the year 2024, 2023. And it is anticipated that the market will experience an annual rate of growth of 5.18% from 2024 to 2029. So we're still looking for a very nicely projected growth within the next 5 years or so. So looking at that again, I don't think it's something to worry about. It's not something that's showing us something is wrong. But like I said, real estate is one thing in Kenya that we need to look into because the prices have gone too high, too fast, without real production in the economy, and we need to kind of know where the money is coming from, which is something I'll discuss later. The other sign is increasing debt defaulted. So in Kenya, we know people borrow money from all these mobile platforms, from all these new applications that people borrow money from. And is it that most people are increasingly not in a position to pay? Because what that shows is that people are not in a position to make money. You borrow money, you pay back money because you're producing, you're making money. That's how money circulates. But if you get to a point whereby you are not in a position to pay back your money, and most people are not in a position to pay back their money, then that could mean something for the economy. So are we seeing that in Kenya? I think we're seeing that, but it's more of a culture thing. People, and especially the youth who are not employed, obviously do not have the means to pay back these debts, but they have access to these debts. I think it is just something that we did not control properly. It's a systematic issue rather than something that shows an economic turmoil. It's not something that's new now. I think the only new thing is that there are now more applications, more sources to get all these loans, but then the youth are now getting into these loans without proper employment. The unemployment rate has been bad for a period of time, and it's something that needs to be considered. But then it's not a new thing that people are defaulting on some of their debts. I think the middle class who are working actually do pay their debts, so there hasn't been like a huge default rate. But last year and early this year, there were lots of auctions on people's properties and people's stuff, and that could show you something, but it wasn't so widespread. So unless you tell me in the comment section what you guys think, let me know what you see on the ground. Are people losing their property due to default in debt? What's happening, especially the middle class? When you see the people, the middle class, people are actually working every single day and they make money, they're not in a position to pay their debt. Now that portends some kind of doom for the economy. I'm not sure. You guys let me know. No statistics online, I've tried to check, but debt defaulting is one of those things that is not clearly reported. It is reported, but it's just based on the statistics that they had or the data that they have. I think they don't have so much data. The other sign that there could be an economic turmoil is obviously poor management. And this is just poor corporate governance. We have poor governance in a country. There's no proper management of resources. There's no proper production. Remember, for an economy to grow, there has to be input and output. And that input and output has to be efficiently controlled. So you need to know where is the best place to put my money today to make the best output. Right? If we don't have clear governance, clear corporate governance in the country, then there is a sign that we have a problem. Now, when it comes to corporate governance in Kenya, I'm going to leave that to you to decide how we are in terms of how we are governing our resources. Then the next sign is corruption. A huge runaway corruption is a big issue. Why? Because with corruption, if the money is circulating in the economy, that's a good thing. But if the money is not circulating in the economy and those who are extremely corrupt take that money away from the economy, then they are stifling the economy. It's like basically you're having your hands on the neck of the economy. Why? Because you are taking away all the resources, all the output of the economy outside the economy. So it's like a business that's producing money and all the money just goes away. Nothing goes back into the business. That business at some point, when it needs more money to be injected in for it to function, it will collapse. So it will stagnate or collapse. So this is something that we definitely need to look into in terms of how are we doing when it comes to corruption. Now, corruption is terrible. We've had it for a long time. It's a culture that I don't think is going away anytime soon. But is it at a manageable level? I don't know. Is it something that could show us, more is coming? I don't know. A lot of political class have stolen money. We've survived this far. I don't know if this is the worst one. I have no statistics on how much has been stolen, how much runs away. Of course, these are things that even if you look for data online, it's not real data, right? Because nobody's going to report how much they stole. So with corruption, it's very hard to determine. But you know what? If you feel it's getting to that point, let me know in the comment section below. You think it's getting to the point whereby this is really bad? Let me know. Then we have high budget deficit that leads to borrowing, especially external debts. Now, we have very high debts as a country. All of you know that we are constantly borrowing money. We've borrowed so much that at some point we were struggling to pay. And of course, that's why President Ruto has been trying so much to control borrowing lately. But generally speaking, I think our debt has been quite high. What happened to Ghana, for example, they had a very high debt to GDP ratio, which I think Kenya also has a very high debt to GDP ratio right now. For example, our public to debt GDP ratio has gone from 67% in 2022, it went to 73%, and I think it's projected to be at around 78% in 2024, or it is actually 78%. So anyway, last year it was a 73% debt to GDP ratio. Now that's dangerous. 70-something% of debt to GDP ratio is quite dangerous, it's quite high. It means basically whatever it is you're producing as a country can almost all be used just to pay your debt, which is terrible, leaving you with nothing completely. The same way you take loans and you're not in a position to pay, the same way a country can take loans that is not in a position to pay. You have to be producing enough for you to pay your loan. You have to be making money for you to pay your loan. If you're not in a position to make that money, then you're going to have a problem. Our debt to GDP ratio is something that we definitely have to look out for. It's something that the government is trying to watch, but I don't know how far we've gone with it. So I've done quite a good video on our debt to GDP ratio and where we are as a country, and it is alarming, but I did a comparison with many other countries, and it wasn't as terrible at the time. So let me know what you think. If you think it's a crazy one, if you think our debt to GDP ratio is really, really bad, then that is something we might have to discuss. But I think it's not at an alarming place. It's been quite high for a number of years. It's definitely something to worry about. But at the moment, the government has managed to put off some of the risky debts that we have been worrying about. So not sure how that's going to go. Then, of course, we have what we call economic stagnation, whereby we have basically no economic growth for a long time. The country is doing really badly. There's no production. Our GDP is basically negative or stagnant. There's no job creation. There's no foreign direct investment in the country. The economy is basically a dead horse. That's when you know you're in a bad economic situation. So guys, these are some of the signs that a country is in a bad economic situation. I don't think Kenya is in this place yet, but if you think otherwise, let me know in the comment section below. This has been a long video, but it is worth it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your ideas are. Let me know what you're experiencing as well. Until next time, I'm out.